The Olsinski Law Firm is an official sponsor of Top Bin 90, specializing in personal injury, criminal defense, DWI, family law, and workers' compensation. The Olsinski Law Firm provides professional, trusted legal services to clients facing a variety of challenges. With a team of experienced attorneys dedicated to protecting your rights, the Olsinski Law Firm is the legal support you can count on.
Hi, I'm Justin Olsinski, the founding partner of the Olsinski Law Firm. Me and my wife started this firm back in 2010 with the sole purpose of providing excellent service to our clients, giving our clients a personal touch because we had worked in bigger firms where we saw that not happening. We handle criminal defense matters, civil personal injury, wrongful death, workers' comp, and family law matters. We have a team of attorneys that care about the outcome of your case, and we will fight to make sure that you get the justice you deserve.
Hello, and welcome to episode 53 of the Top Bin 90 podcast. What a weekend we had. Charlotte FC's home opener here. A phenomenal atmosphere at the bank and a win. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about our feelings of just having the lower bowl open. What other topics do we have? You know, we heard from Charlotte FC's front office last week, so we've got some comments on that. A phenomenal win by Crown Legacy as well, you know, reminiscing their first season, you know, and also we're going to be previewing you Inter Miami, Lionel Messi coming to the home of Bojangles and Cookout. And for that, I have two of the best MLS people here with me. I have my co-host, Mr. Brian, Bam Mauer Media. How are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Here we go.
Here
Gotta
we
win.
go.
Let's go.
Nice. And we also have Mr. Toño on tonight. How are you feeling?
Good, man. Always good to be here with you guys after a much-needed win, boost of confidence. It's always good to be back at the bank. It's finally hit you. The MLS is back when you played your first game at home. So, and now 4 more on the road. Let's do it.
Yeah. Now that we've had a couple of home openers, what do you enjoy most about like that first home game at the bank?
Just the feel of being back and, you know, being around the fans and checking all the atmosphere and, you know, chatting with people that you haven't seen in a couple of months. So that's what I like.
Yeah, it's like a little mini reunion kind of back, you know. Brian?
Yeah, I think the lower bowl atmosphere. I was gonna.
This guy wants to get in already. Sir Minty, so I'll go with Sir Minty. Seeing Sir Minty.
Tifo this
The
weekend
Tifo
was
was
pretty cool.
fire
Yes.
too. Yeah, shout out to the Tifo committee, I guess they would be called. And so phenomenal, right? Let's get into the game a bit. We had a little bit of everything. We've had a red card. We had own goals. We had goals disallowed.
Yep.
You know, Toño, I'm gonna start with you. What did you make of this game? You know, an important game that Charlotte needed to win.
Yeah, of course. It's sometimes very tricky to play a man up. Even if you consider that Austin, you know, had a red card early in the game, that changes everything for them, for Charlotte FC as well. But it can be tricky. A good team with a man down, defending well, parking the bus, it could be, you know, kind of difficult. But I think the team was very patient. The resiliency, gotta shout out Maurice Onaje after the own goal. He had a really good game. You can see his composure. You can see his personality. Didn't bother him during the game. So it's just seeing Wilfred Zaha in a good shape, being sharp, winning 1v1, 1v2 duels. And when you have a guy like Pep Biel, he's a game changer. He's a playmaker. So that's what a DP should look like in this league. So, but again, sometimes playing with a man up, it could be tricky. You can, relax. But I think the team found solutions, and it's a very well 3-1 win.
Yeah.
And it gets tricky sometimes, especially if you're up 1-0, and then you have that own goal like that, and you're 1-1. Now it kind of completely changes the script where Austin, at that point, you're fine if you're Austin getting out of Charlotte with the draw. Gives them even more reason to go low block and really defend deep. Whereas if they were still down 1-0, they have to go for it and really could open the game up where it would be in Charlotte's hands. So that own goal sets up a situation where they had to kind of figure out how to beat a low block because, again, I feel like Austin at that point were really completely okay with the draw if you could get away with it.
If you're a man up, you have a responsibility to win.
No, 100%. 100%.
These guys are trying to gaslight you guys into. No, I'm kidding.
They embrace that responsibility.
I think,
they embrace it.
I think you absolutely.
You see how they started the second half? They were just all over Austin's box. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, even before they went down a man. There was a couple opportunities. I remember that tough ball to Pep Biel. He kind of just whiffed it a little bit, and so. But obviously, I think seeing the DPs connect, right? Leo Labata with an assist, Zaha with an assist, Pep Biel with 2 goals. Even Toklomati, he needed a goal, to kind of get his count going. And so all at home, I think, was phenomenal. And so, let's talk a little bit about some of the changes that we saw from the get-go, right? We saw Abada come in. We saw Brant Bronico come in for Luca De La Torre, right? And so that's a big call, right? We talked about it on the show. It doesn't matter who they bring. It feels like Brant Bronico finds himself back in the lineup, right? And Dean talked a little bit about him post-match, talking about those forward runs that Brant does. And we also saw, like Toño mentioned, Morrison Ajiman get his start. And so what did you make of all these changes going into this game? Brian, what did you think Dean was looking for with 3 changes from the get-go?
I think maybe a little bit more coachability, especially from Bronico, a guy who's willing to obviously make those runs forward, but I think also cover in behind. Like times Toffolo would obviously push forward, and having that extra midfielder to kind of cover the space behind that he would leave available. And I think that's what, for me, stood out the most was the fullbacks and the midfielders and that double pivot, the way they kind of work together to build and figure out. And I think Byrne and Toffolo are getting on the same page more and more.
Not playing higher at the same time.
Learning, figuring out when to push and when to pull.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was really smooth and coordinated throughout that first 25 minutes. That's what stood out to me the most when they were 11v11, because that was one of the things I wanted to really stick to and figure out what to build from. Because you can't, there's only so much you can take away from the whole season in terms of the 11v10 for the last 65. But what did they do in that first 25 minutes? I think that was the main thing, was the double pivot, and the 2 fullbacks seemed to really rotate and work well together when they were building up from the back.
Absolutely. Was that a red card, Toño?
It's a VAR red card.
Yeah.
In this era.
Slow motion.
I think if that play goes on our side or goes different way, we should be talking about that was not a red card on Charlotte FC, but it's how the referee world is right now.
It's the first controversial decision of the match.
You can see it anywhere. Even the disallowed goal, which I still can't find the handball. It was too tight to Bronico's chest. So, but again, another player, I think you see the difference of this team when he's not on the field and when he is Ashley Westwood. He's our compass. He's our quarterback. He distributes. He organizes everything. Having him again, that was massive, and the cohesiveness he has with Bronico. So they have separate roles.
That's a great point.
They know what they do. They know each other so well. So that's very complimentary of those 2 guys in the midfield. So I think Ashley had a very good game. But yeah, red card in this era, that's gonna be called. But again, at the end of the game, there was a almost handball by Nate Byrne. So there's a lot of controversy in this game. But
and then the Abada elbow as well and the yellow.
Yeah,
I think there was a lot of discussion
and again,
about that.
The disallowed goal to me is still crazy that we're not counting that.
Dean is always talking about the refs, to be real, right?
Yep.
But when Pep Biel says something about the ref, I'm like, okay, even the players felt it, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, that's like, he's not, at least from previous Pep conferences, he's not the type of guy that's going to talk about the ref. But that's one of the things he pointed out. He said it felt like the ref wanted to be the protagonist of this match. I was like, that's a pretty strong statement from a guy that isn't really known for coming out talking about refs, And so, yeah, it just felt like it was a little bit of chaos, from the refs. It wasn't as bad as, Atletico Mineiro in Brazil, and, where they got a whole bunch of red cards.
That,
But, it was still pretty, like, a bad calls overall. It felt through the game. Brian, I want you to talk to me a little bit, and Toño mentioned a little bit, Morrison Ajiman, right? Kind of scoring first game debut at home for him and scoring an own goal, that could be a reason to kind of shut down. We saw that with Privet a little bit in the game against LA Galaxy, and that's why he had to be taken out. But for me, at least when I was looking through, I'm like, it felt like he was still composed. He made some decent tackles as well after that, and so it wasn't like he was fazed by what happened, which, compliment to a guy like Morrison.
Yeah. I will say, and Dean, this is something Dean talked about when we interviewed him today in the training presser, but it's two completely different scenarios. One is Privet down 2-0. Now you've put the game completely out of reach. It's a completely different emotional scenario, and you're on the road. You're at home, up 1-0, up a man. You give up the goal. You're still up a man for an entire second half. You're going to be comfortable on the ball. I mean, Charlotte had, 70%
Yeah, Facundo
possession?
Torres didn't even touch the ball.
And then so all the issues that I think Asuni was looking like he was starting to ask some questions of kind of stopped after the first 30 minutes. And so while I do think it's important as a young player, you have a mistake, how do you bounce back from it? I will say the game state
I got to put some more context into it. You're right.
Favors him a lot.
Less pressure.
Let's see how it is this weekend with Miami when there's a little bit more pressure. Those mistakes cost you a little bit more. And then obviously you just can't bank on them picking up a red card. And so how are you for 90 minutes against Miami? Completely different question to ask.
Absolutely. I do also want to talk. I think it's important to touch a little bit on Toklomati, right? It's really hard to assess a lot of these guys when they were up a man for the majority of a game. So, for me, the positive, as soon as I saw that red card, I was like, okay, it was a must win. It's a really must win now.
Yeah.
And so I don't care if it's 2-1, if it's 2 own goals. You got to get over that hump, especially the first game, being a man up against Austin, right? But also, right, for me, and we talked about this, at least I talk about it, Toklomati always seems to know where to be as well. I've seen plenty of goals from him where he's just at the right spot. And as a striker, you need that, don't you, Toño?
No, and absolutely. You got to think before you get the ball. And as a striker, making those runs behind the center backs and being available, opening spaces. And you get a guy like Pep Biel that's very smart at just dragging defenders out of position. Then when Luca de la Torre came in the game, he had more space to progress. He had more time to think, and you see the skills that he has.
The assist was phenomenal.
So, but Toklomati, he switched numbers. So if you get a number 9, there's a huge responsibility for you. Glad for him that he scored his first goal. But it's just everybody knows his role, and everybody knew that you were a man up. You got the responsibility to go score, and I think the 3-1 score, it reflects a lot of what really happened in the second half.
Yeah, and I even like the way he celebrated, he was taking off the dust, hey, okay, I got whatever bad luck, but I'm like, bro, it's only been 2 games you haven't scored in. You scored a brace, the last game of the preseason, but that goes to show he understands that there's pressure. Right, and 2, he's putting that pressure on himself, and I like that about a young striker like him. Brian, talk to me a little bit about Harry Toffolo. You had him up as a stock up, right? Yeah. We saw a lot of positive play from him this match.
Yeah, he got a ton of volume. I think he led the team in touches. He had over 100 touches. You got to see just what he could do in the final third. I think especially getting shots, crosses. Just a lot of key plays in and around the box. But then also still the way he rotated back, helped defend, all those other kind of things, I think was, you saw a more complete game, which is I think what we were missing. He was out of position a lot, trying to figure out how to work with the other, his teammates. But I think what we saw from him was working well with Zaha, the overlapping runs, the crosses into the box, the switch he makes to Abada for that for the second goal, the game-winning goal, was just really, really spot on. And then he also the half volley he had, and you can tell because he
that ball
goes
was going
to the
in.
ground. He goes to the ground. You can tell he was
just
celebrating with his family.
That.
He was Yeah, he was in the crowd.
That was like
He was
almost like
ready.
a Benjamin
Yeah.
Pavard type of goal in the World Cup.
30 yards.
He hit
knew
it pretty good.
He knew
Yeah.
he hit it. He hit it right. I mean, because you could tell he just goes to the ground and it's. So you
Those
just
are the worst to miss, by
I
the
know.
way. When you're like, yo,
when
it's
it's
going
You know it's going in, and
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
just deflects it. Is the worst.
yeah, and so I think you just saw a lot of his qualities. So from that half volley, how dangerous he can be outside of the box, picking up those rebounds and launching them back in towards goal, or putting in crosses from wide areas. Also, just combining in the middle. He can kind of do a lot, and I think that's what I mean, that's why they brought him in, right? How can you like kind of complement what Zaha brings and help Zaha have more freedom to move wide or inside?
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's more of a attacking left back.
Yeah.
Than the ones that we've had in the past. But you gotta be super smart and coordinate with Nathan,
Yep.
who's gonna play at the same level,
Yeah.
not higher both at the same time, so you don't expose your defense in a transition like what we saw in St. Louis and in LA.
And
Yeah.
We saw a way better 3-2 build, which is what Dean says he wants. We saw Nathan Byrne held back a lot whenever Toffolo went
Yeah.
high, and it was a 3-2 build with Privet, or not Privet, Westwood and Bronico in the middle. And it was just, I mean, they did that like pretty much the whole game, which is what we were missing through the first two games, because that was what kind of confused me, because Dean was always saying we want to have a 3-2 build up, and it just
Like
didn't seem like it happened at all.
When
through
we
the first
when
two
we
matches.
had Tim Breen playing like a left back,
Yes.
like a third center
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
last year, but it's kind of what Dean's like for a build from the back setup. Also, the set pieces, I think they're working on set pieces.
They are.
You talked to Dean
Yes.
earlier today, and they say they're gonna be hiring somebody
Yep.
just to be part
Yeah.
of the coaching staff and work there. But you can really tell
The
that they're
disallowed
going in the
goal?
lab, trying to do something. The disallowed goal came from a great set piece. The third goal, it was a short corner kick too.
Yep.
So there's something that you have to unlock there. It's like an extra tool when things can be tricky to.
Turn into Arsenal FC is
Hey,
my
they're
concern.
at the top of the table. So, I mean, there's reason to mirror some of that, right? I mean, where's Lee
One-
when we need him?
One of the best set piece coaches in Premier League is Mexican, Bernardo Cueva. He works for Chelsea, so might bring him back maybe.
Hey, dang. Maybe
Cisco's
a little
celebrating.
exclusive from Toño.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No.
Awesome.
I wish we could have Bernardo Cueva.
And then what more can we talk about Pep Biel, who, we talked about, hey, he's going to come back and he's going to feel like he's got something, maybe not something to prove, but I hate that I missed the playoff run. And when you see the quality, the last goal was phenomenal for me. First of all, Luca De La Torre's assist was phenomenal. And then the way Pep Biel finishes, he could have had a hat trick, right?
Even
the
a
last
poker,
play,
the
last
he hit
play
the
of the
crossbar,
match
too.
hit the crossbar, and I'm like, dude, this is the type of stuff that I ask and we talk about. When you want a DP in your team, I get every time I see Pep play a little bit more, I get more and more confident in who he is and in his style of play, and I'm like, okay, this is a guy that we can count on when the going gets rough. And so 3 goals, Toño's 3 games to start off the season for Pep Biel. What can we make of him this season?
Again, I think that's what a DP should look like. He's special. He wins games for you. He also is very unselfish sometimes. He knows, where to assist, finding Toklo Mati several times when Toklo did some really good runs. He has good chemistry with Kerwin. You can tell when Kerwin came off the bench. He actually provided a spark, Kerwin, in the second half. So he's a game changer. Glad that he's on a permanent deal now. And I think we all enjoy watching Pep Biel play at the bank, and that's a difference maker, and that's a player that we miss in the playoffs, as Jorge said. But he just picked up where he left off, so that's perfect after a bad injury.
That's a good comment right there.
Yeah, I think it's also just like all the moment. I mean, it's all about momentum, right? I mean, I think more than any specific takeaway from the game, obviously it's 11v10, so there's only so much we can know from how far this team has improved. But at the end of the day, build momentum. Tokolmati getting a goal, BL getting a brace, and also now he's won all 4 of Charlotte's points, getting the equalizer and the point in St.
That's a good
Louis.
point.
Can't wait to see
getting
Pep
the game
Biel
winning
in the
goal.
All-Star Skills Challenge. He's got to be
there.
there.
He's gonna
so
be in for sure.
That's gotta be cool. So
Yeah, I would like to still see. I mean, because we saw a ton of production from him this time, a lot of volume, and I think that's one of the things we've been talking about and asking of this team a lot. Is like, hey, can we get more volume and not just demand efficiency. I feel like Zaha had to be extremely efficient to get all the goals he scored last year. Same with Biel, all these guys. And in this game, we saw volume because of the man up. Can Biel start to create some of this volume even when it's 11v11 and you're not depending maybe on that bright moment like we saw in St. Louis? Kind of was quiet and then found the bright moment. Can you make the game so it's less suffering for long stretches and not having to find that one spark and just create a longer tenure of a good quality game in the attacking third? I think that's one last step we got to kind of see from this group, 11v11.
Absolutely. I also wanted to talk a little bit about Aaron John making his, MLS debut, short-term contract, then straight to his. I mean, he didn't even expect to go in, but just the nature of the game kind of gave him that opportunity. I mean, the times that Dean Smith has talked about Aaron John, he just, is absolutely over the moon with a young player like that. And even like you talked a little bit, Toño, about Ashley Westwood and the leadership on the field. I think even off the field, it was really great because right before they started celebrating, he went and grabbed them and put him in the middle of everybody. And, we talked to Aaron a little bit after, and he said, hey, take this moment in. And so, it's really cool kind of seeing now that, kind of plot kind of untwist, where a veteran player like Ashley Westwood kind of bringing up the next generation of Charlotte FC.
He's like a mentor figure for some of those young guys,
And so obviously we didn't see much of Aaron John, Brian, but you've spoken to him in the past. You have a sense of what a player he can be, right? And work ethic is one of the things that we hear a lot about him.
Yeah, and just a high work rate. Obviously a good brain. I think his characteristics are just off the chart. And I mean, I've now talked to him for years now since he signed his pro deal when he was 17 or 18, 19, and it's been a couple of years. And man, the fact that when he first signed that pro deal, and I asked him about it, just what went through that process, because at the time he was contemplating, do I go to college? Because that was his plan, was to just go to Liberty, and he just was waiting. And while waiting, he just started scoring a bunch of goals for Crown Legacy. And then they were like, hey, man, do you want to just go pro? And he had to kind of contemplate that decision. And when he told me, I had to sit and pray on it a lot. And I just think for a 17-year-old kid weighing those two decisions, to take a moment and just pray and kind of dig deep within oneself on what is your path in life. Because that's kind of, and he talked to us about that.
Yep.
And that's most figuring out who he is as a person. What's his best path? Where is he meant to be? Kind of reflecting on those types of questions.
At
As
17,
a teenager, is for me, that's insane. It's the level of maturity that requires to kind of handle that kind of pressure situation in those kind of pathways is well beyond his years in my mind. So that right off the bat, just characteristic traits that stand out. Besides the work rate, besides his technical ability that he also showed, his ability in the final third, his ability to play really anywhere in the midfield. We saw him come on for Westwood and play deeper as a 6. The U.S. Youth National Team, when I've talked to Rob Valentino, when he called him up to the U.S. Youth National Team, U19, he tried him at the 8, the 10, and the 6. They like him in all those spots.
Phenomenal.
Same with Legacy, right? They like him in all these spots. So the fact that he has
broke
this
the record in assists in next pro, right?
It tied for the record at the time. I think it's been broken since, but still 18 goal contributions that season, 8 goals, 10 assists. The guy has a ton of just traits that I think, for me, if I'm looking at a young player coming up, he seems like the real typical Dean Smith type of player, a guy who's first and foremost going to work hard for the team and make players around him better, and also just create volume in the attacking third, while also doing it through hard work rate off the ball and finding ways to win the ball back. And I think that's just a huge part of his game. And I was really excited to see, and I think I texted you about it. I didn't ask for confirmation from him, but I saw him at the Crown Legacy game on Friday in street clothes, and I thought there might be something up.
Yeah.
And I texted you that night. I was like, I think AJ might be on the lineup the next day. And
I thought you just knew.
No, I just speculated at the time. But as soon as I saw him and kind of talked to him briefly in street clothes at the game, and I was just like, man, I really hope he's on that lineup card and, getting that opportunity to see him after, years of covering and talking to him and kind of getting him to get this
kind of
moment.
seeing that path, right, come to fruition.
It's huge for this organization. I think it's important to have, you see kind of how players like Bronico, the fan base really, even just me just posting today about just
funny
a kind
meme,
of funny little meme about Bronico. Like people like really rush to that because it's just there's players that people are going to connect in Charlotte-based players like that are just I think important to a club. People that grow up in the academy. I think that's why people are also calling for Nimfasha to get minutes.
yeah.
Right?
That's every club's dream.
Yeah.
To have a good academy, and that's
Yeah.
developmental path, and they've shown it that it
Yeah.
works. It payoffs.
Yeah.
You just saw Lajamang, so
Yeah.
you got Preben in the first team. So
Yeah.
here comes Rodolfo Aloco, and you have Nimfasha. So there's a path for
Yeah.
developing those guys.
For sure. Now let's look at it from more of a realistic perspective as well. Like,
Okay.
what kind of opportunities? I guess we'll start off with you, Toño. Is there a shot that we see more of Aaron John? Right, given Luca De La Torre was dropped. But I mean, he was brought on, right? You've got Brent Bronico, you've got Diani, you've got Ashley Westwood,
Even Koulibaly.
Koulibaly.
He
Realistically,
played for
like
Legacy on Friday. So
Koulibaly, like realistically, how much can we expect to see Aaron John this season?
But you gotta take it slowly. His developing process. But if Dean trusts him and he just wants to give him the experience of traveling and being around the first team and practicing with an MLS caliber team, not just with the legacy guys, it's all about experience. It's all about the right situation. Leagues Cup, maybe the Open Cup. I don't know. That's just the moments, or like a 4-0 game that you're winning, give him 20 more minutes. You got to take it slowly, but if Dean trusts him, just stick with the plan that they have developing him.
Yeah, I would say U.S. Open Cup is a prime opportunity. I'm looking forward to seeing kind of what changes in rotation come to those early games. Obviously, once they start playing MLS clubs, I want to see their straight up first team and see them go for the.
It's all about the
for that
situation.
trophy. But in the early rounds, if they're going up against USL teams, I would totally be down to see if Aaron John can get some reps there. Technically, and I asked Charlotte FC this earlier today, but he can only come up one more time for one more MLS game
Gotcha.
under a current contract
Yeah,
situation. He can
that's
come
true.
up for 3 more of those short-term agreements.
Yeah.
But only one more MLS game or one more MLS roster he can be on. So
those short-term agreements, you get up to 4 per season.
It's 4 per season in 4 days. So it's like a
Gotcha.
Friday to Monday essentially contract. So you can't like overlap it between. I asked all these questions about it. You can't overlap an MLS game and a U.S. Open Cup game. There's all these kind of stipulations to it. So he gets one more MLS game if under the current situation and deal that he's on. Now he has a first team agreement within his contract. That's what was announced when he first signed. And I imagine that was one of the reasons why he was convinced to stay on a legacy deal, because at the time there was no room for him, rather than go to Liberty. If he has that first team deal, I mean,
Liberty University.
Yeah, Liberty University. Yep, sorry, I should probably clarify that. But yeah, but if they decide to sign him to that first team aspect of his contract, I don't know exactly what the wording is on that, or if they have to renegotiate, extend, whatever the case may be. Now that changes things. If he's on a first team deal, and they have supplemental roster spots available, I think at least 3 or 4, because they have a few guys loaned out. So there's room for him right now to get that, and then he would get more. But at this point, there's one more spot left, or one more game left.
I would also say, out of all the young players or players with potential to get into the squad, just the way that Dean talks about him, right, and the fact that he's given him this opportunity in this game, to me, there's a clear path of Aaron John getting a good amount of reps and having an opportunity, a window to kind of come into this team. Because, and I think what we don't see is what happens day to day, right? And so we can just base off of what we see. When Koulibaly was brought up last season, right, there was 2 or 3 opportunities. I can think back to the DC game when we were up 2 men.
Yeah.
He didn't bring him in, right? And there was other opportunities that I felt like Koulibaly could have gotten the minutes, but Dean chose not to.
Yeah.
Right. And now I'm seeing kind of the opposite with an Aaron John, where there's opportunities and he's putting him in. And so I think, and that Dean has gone, I wouldn't say gone out of his way, but has spoke so highly of him multiple times. These to me are reasonings that, like, okay, this kid will have some shots. Now, what he does with those shots is what's truly going to determine whether, he can stabilize in a position where he goes from just getting a couple minutes to actually becoming a player that, can get 15 to 20 consistent minutes coming off the bench. And, I mean, there's other players that are ahead of him right now.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting to see how that develops.
Yeah, I think the other thing about him is that there's so many coaches that I've talked to at this point that all have a pretty similar message. They all really like him. It's super consistent across the board, from Brian Scales, Dean, Rob Valentino, all these guys, legit development coaches or first team coaches, and all have like really raving reviews about him. And I think when you have that much consistency at a high level across the board, I think it speaks volumes to what you're doing on and off the field.
Absolutely. All right. One last thing I want to talk about the home opener is, just having the lower bowl open, right? The atmosphere, it was sold out, phenomenal atmosphere, you know. And so, Brian, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've made my stance pretty clear based on how ticket sales were going and how the bowl looked last year. At times when they opened the upper bowl, while the numbers were higher, I think the atmosphere wasn't quite as good as what we saw both last Saturday and those couple of times when they opted to go, like for Miami or the playoff game when they opted to go lower bowl only. I think the atmosphere was phenomenal again. And actually, I think they said it was the record amount of sales tickets for the lower bowl. So even when they had opened the upper bowl, they still hadn't sold that many tickets in the lower bowl before. And so I think there's just, they again, the strategy was push everybody down, keep everybody packed in, closer to the action, keep the noise loud. And based on what we also had talked to Zorn about last week.
It's going to go into that.
The players and the coaches and everybody within the organization felt like that lower bowl being packed brings the atmosphere to what, he was saying a top tier at Premier League.
Yeah.
And so if that is indeed the case based on what they're experiencing, that's going to give a different level of drive to players who are playing within the game. And I would also say from a player recruitment perspective too, like if you're bringing in potential prospects or players that you're trying to bring into your organization, if you can show them an atmosphere that you deem to be top tier Premier League type of atmosphere, and you can actually highlight that, and that's what they see, that can be a game changer in terms of where you might go.
Yeah, you could feel it.
It's a big stadium, so
Yeah.
it's super hard to feel it. And when you open the upper deck, you can see sometimes some empty spots in the lower bowl.
Yep.
So, from the atmosphere standpoint and business decision, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think, the key to me was what Zoran mentioned, that, the players felt it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that
was a game changer that we hadn't heard yet.
that's perspective that we didn't have. Although I am still for having the upper bowl opened the first home game, because seeing a 35K number to me, I was like, dang, reminiscing the 70s and the 60s, right? And
but we still hold the record for, a club that plays in their own stadium for attendance. Because the two records that they just said for LA is not LA stadium.
Yeah.
So
or even like DC Miami this week. It was a different stadium.
Exactly.
So. But then people be like, well, you don't have your own stadium because it's not so. There's always technicalities to everything,
It's the same owner, so it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
One last thing I'll also say about this is if that's the sellout number and that number is 35,611, like what we posted. I think what will be kind of cool is if that's actually the number. A lot of stadiums and a lot of other MLS clubs that have those, that have soccer-specific stadiums, have kind of like that sellout number that kind of becomes an iconic branded kind of number that people
That's a good
think
point.
of.
I like that. Yeah.
That now, because of doing this, Charlotte now has. Now I don't know if that's actually the official locked-in number, but they said it was a sellout. So I'd imagine that that's then the number that they're looking for every week. Every week is the 35,000
to be deemed a sellout.
Exactly.
Right.
And so if that's the number that you're always trying to hit, I think that aspect does
It's a really good point,
carry
actually.
some weight.
Yeah.
Because when you're looking at Nashville or LAFC, or Austin, I think Austin is really well known for hitting their sellout number,
Which is
and
it's
22. Yeah, but it's still an iconic
For sure,
them.
for sure. I get
whenever
you,
they
I get
see
you.
that number, that's yes, that's the number. Everybody's in here. That's supposed to be right. That's the whole thing. And so I think that's all part of it. So it's having that kind of number, I think, does hold some weight. Whereas that's just not something that was a part of Charlotte FC's history before.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. I think we'll see either it sell out or very close again this weekend with Inter Miami coming into town
yeah.
as well, which is like a very like high level. Obviously, the Messi factor is something that's always going to add to something like that. And so, with that said, I do want to touch a little bit on some of the things that, last week we got to hear from a couple of different people. Zoran, we got to hear from the Chief Revenue Officer. Chief Revenue Officer Eric Sudol, and also from the of Tepper Sports, which is Christy Coleman, right? And so there's some interesting things that they mentioned. I know, Brian, you did a phenomenal article on that. And so I think we touched a little bit on it about the lower bowl, but there was also something that Zoran mentioned where, he talked about how positive is that we didn't get like a France or a Brazil, to be at our base camp, because if you're being honest, like a prime Mbappe isn't coming to Charlotte FC, No. And so, but a team like Scotland has players there that are very high level.
I'll take Scott McTominay.
Yeah, no. And so, talk to me a little bit about that. And then I know, Brian, you also touched on it with Dean today.
Yeah, and I think these 2 points really coincide. So Zoran specifically mentioned, obviously, the tier that Scotland as a national team is in. Then on top of that, it's the connections that the club already has.
Yeah.
They're connected to the Scottish Premiership, right? They signed Abada from Celtic, right? They have signed multiple players from the Championship, Premier League. They have a ton of ties in that region.
There's a player that had on the
connects to
Discovery
Scotland.
list that was at Celtic too.
Yep, and so they're
Scott Arfield.
They're connected.
Forget Scott Arfield.
Can't forget the legend.
Can't forget a false nine, man.
Yeah. And,
And we say he was the best. Didn't Dean say he was the best finisher at one point too?
Can't remember.
I remember he said that.
Allegedly. Anyway, but across the board, I mean, just they're connected, well connected in that region between Scotland, UK, Premier League, and a lot of the Scottish national team. They play in the Premier League, right? They play in the Championship. And so I think just being connected to that region and having that region coming here is really valuable. And then on top of it, when I asked Dean about some of his former players that are in and around the Scottish national team and could be making that final World Cup roster, I mean, he rattled off like 7 or 8 names off the top of his head.
Yeah, he did.
McGinn specifically, he said he was probably the first one to know that Scotland was coming to Charlotte because McGinn reached out to him first. And so it's like the ties that then Dean has to that national team and just the players within that organization. And again, I think it just doubles down on that whole impact of when Zoran saw that Scotland was going to be the team that picked here. I think Zoran saw a lot of opportunity to network in multiple capacities, from Dean having connections to players within that team, or just, again, who those players know, and on and on. And so I think it's a great opportunity for them. And this is something else Zoran mentioned, like an opportunity for them to kind of feel what it's like. They're going to have essentially an opportunity to feel what it's like to live and play here.
Yeah.
They have, like, their opportunity is there to see, like, what is it like to play for Charlotte FC? Then training at Charlotte FC
facilities
for a whole month and a half, for eating at their restaurants, staying in the hotels around town. Just they'll have a vibe of what it's like to be here, And so I think all that kind of really ties into this. I mean, it's a prime opportunity for them to do some serious recruiting, and at the very least, get the word out and get some more feelers out. That's like the minimum. If not, I mean, straight up find some players to sign.
Yep. Don't you have anything to add to that,
Yeah, we've had Real Madrid here. We've had Uruguay, Colombia.
Yeah.
I remember Luka Modric, having a little conversation
Chat
with
Zoran,
with Soren and with Galina. So it's a World Cup year. It's a World Cup window.
Yeah.
You gotta show everybody that we're not gonna be hosting a game, but we're hosting a team, and also Germany's gonna be close.
Yep.
Norway's gonna be close.
Yeah.
It's it's representing the Carolinas at the world stage, even not having a game, but we're gonna have a friendly game with USA.
Yeah,
so
actually,
it's the summer buzz that we start to
Yeah.
hype a little bit more.
Senegal's gonna be here. I'm gonna imagine there's players. Yeah, you're right. Like there's
It's kind of odd to me. It doesn't feel like a World Cup year yet.
That's true.
It's kind of awkward, but I hope the hype meets the expectations.
Absolutely. So while we may get a Scottish player, Holland may end up at Carolina Court, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to touch on that they spoke about was like rebuilding trust with the fan base.
Yeah.
Obviously, There's news came out that they've hired someone that kind of holds that role a little bit as well. But I think both Eric and Christy were a little bit transparent with that, saying that they feel like they need to be more. At least Christy said she needed to be a little bit more front facing, and kind of build a bit more on those relationships. So that's positive to me that like these guys are looking at this and listening to what's going on online, and saying, okay, like maybe these guys do have a point in terms of what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. I think it was a learning curve for them year one. I think both of them hadn't worked directly with a soccer program before, right? Both high level in terms of sports executive experience, but maybe, just trying to figuring out how those, where the overlap is and where their experiences will benefit them, but then also figuring out where their kind of gaps in learning are. And I think that's what this last year maybe was a little bit, and also kind of what they expressed. I think Christy mentioned, she's like, she mentioned like learning, and like she had to take some of the responsibility of like not being front facing like she felt like she now realizes she needs to be, and really being at events. Like I think she said she was at Clutch for the season opener watch party and things like that. So just being around the fans with them, being a front facing figure, being a little bit more accessible, whether it's through media or what have you. And then I think Eric was under similar lines, and then also just being able to kind of field questions specifically from me when I asked about, because I know season ticket holders had a real issue with some of the perks that they were getting. The pre-sale emails coming out like really last minute for like the All-Star Games ticket sales and different things like that. Just kind of missing the boat on some of those simple logistics that go a long way for season ticket members feeling heard. And that's your core base, right? And so I think them fielding those questions, acknowledging that there were mistakes on their part that they had that had been made. Now obviously acknowledging them and realizing that there are faults, and then taking the action necessary to kind of mend them are two different things, right? And so now I think but the fact that they were willing to listen is the first step. Now it's where you find that balance of actually making that next step and mending some of those bridges.
Yeah, we talked about, Charlotte 2.0, and I think you mentioned it well in your article. They inherited what was going on, right? And
some of it, for sure.
Some of it for sure. And it's, there used to be just a Charlotte FC specific president.
Yep.
Now there isn't, right? So there's things that do take learning curves, right? And so hopefully we see that benefit now, for the fans, right? Because at the end of the day, they're the lifeblood of a club. And so I'm curious to see. It looks like they're taking some steps towards that, and so hopefully we see an improvement on a lot of these things this year, right? And so awesome. I do want to touch also on Crown Legacy a little bit, these guys look like a prime PSG, although PSG isn't doing that great this season, right? And so 7-2, a loco 4 goals and an assist in the last 2 games. Nymphasia an assist. You mentioned it earlier, where, like if Charlotte's not doing well, people be like, well, you got these productive wingers, right, in Crown Legacy.
Yeah.
Right? Brian, you've interacted with Kevin, right, the head coach, You were at the game. Talk to us a little bit about Crown Legacy.
Yeah, they just look like they're a level above MLS Next Pro. There's a lot of guys.
Squad.
There's a lot of guys on that team that I think are MLS ready, and there's just not quite enough spots on the first team roster to be called up, and so they have to get reps somewhere. And this is how they kind of stay around the team, stay around the culture, and are able to get a call up when the opportunity arises, like it did for AJ this last week. But until then, this team is going to just, I think, pound a lot of the MLS Next Pro Eastern Conference. 11 goals in 2 games is pretty ridiculous at any level. It clearly shows a level above. They have a ton of depth, especially on the attacking line. Having a guy who's been with the U.S. men's national team at U19, U20 levels on one wing, having a guy who, rumor has it, reports that he was upwards of, up to $6 million in transfer fee, playing for AFCON. These guys are playing for national teams.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. Right? And they're going up against, it was Huntsville, so that's Nashville's affiliate. A lot of those guys, and I'd seen like Charles Emile Brunet play for SMU the year before in the ACC championship. So he's coming straight out of college. And a lot of other guys, Huntsville and Nashville typically recruits domestic and college based and stuff like that. And so you just have just a different level that you're seeing there. And that's what we saw also when they first brought in Crown Legacy in 2023 was they went heavy with a little bit of transfer fees, adding some international roster spots and international players because of the way they just recruit in general, right? They really try to, I think Charlotte prides themselves in having a really wide base, wide market, looking in areas that maybe other people aren't quite looking, whether it's Africa, Israel, kind of undercover spots in like Portugal, spots like that. And so I think that's what made that first roster in 2023, and you see a lot of similarities to this roster in 2026. And honestly, I feel like this roster might even be a bit stronger based on early indicators. And they just have so many options at both wing. I mean, they were playing a Loco as like it was really like classic look. It looked like it was a 4. They just went full out attack. Loco was going from instead of right wing to playing like sort of like a cam, but really just a second striker up there with the new guy.
You got to check on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. And then he went down. And they brought in Nathan Richmond, and he had a goal and 2 assists. And he came right in. He had just been at Clemson the last couple of years, but he also had a goal and 2 assists. So there's just a lot of guys that are just feeling it for them right now.
Nice. Toño, I mean, Zoran and Dean talked about Supporter Shield. Is it something that they are looking to see in MLS Next Pro first? Is that kind of what we're doing here?
Well, that team clearly can finish number 1 in MLS Next Pro. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's just a good landing spot. It's a good transitional league for guys that are already ready to play in MLS. But also kids like William Sangokisa that he's now captain for Crown Legacy.
And been there a few years now.
Yeah, and like a landing spot for the Pekovic in the past and, Toklomati, Patrick Ajeman, Andrew Priebe. This is a good path to start your way up to the first team. So that's a really fun team to watch. Tickets are free. So there's no excuse to have fun at Crown Legacy games.
Listen, just show up and say Top Bin send you, and they'll let you in for free. So, also, I would just say to add to that and being serious, I would say shout out to Kevin Sawchuk as well. I mean, it felt a little hard done that he didn't get the job last season when he took them the deepest that Crown Legacy's ever gone in a playoff. And so seeing him back, as the Crown Legacy head coach, I think is a great thing as well. Yeah. And so awesome. All right, let's get into it. Inter Miami is coming to Charlotte, North Carolina.
He got excited just saying Inter Miami.
Lionel Messi.
Oh my God.
He's been waiting for this game.
He was waiting for this time on the show.
The greatest player of all time. And Lionel Messi will be in the same pitch. Nah. So obviously we talked about this game, right? There's a lot of things that went well, but Miami is a whole nother monster, and it's going to be 11-11, and so make a wish, guys. I'll start off with you, Toño. What are some of the things that you're expecting going into this match from a consistency level and improvement, right? Obviously, we talked a little bit about Morris and Ajiman having to deal with way harder threats this match than against Austin.
Yeah, dealing the pressure to play against the reigning champs, a team that got really much better than what they had last year with Dan Sinclair, goalkeeper of the year, Mikael, they got Rodrigo de Paul back. Germán Berterame is such a great striker. He probably is going to play for Mexico, or he's going to be called up for Mexico for the World Cup. So Leo Messi is just matching those standards and being ready for the pressure to play against a contender. All eyes are going to be on this game next weekend. So it's good to face them early in the season. I think we're going to finish the regular season on the road at Miami. If I'm not mistaken, that's the last game. That's decision day. Yeah. So, but at least it's going to be your first Eastern Conference team that you're going to be playing for, what we started with 3 Western Conference teams. So it's the first, duel with a direct team that you're going to be fighting in the standings in Eastern Conference. Great team. These are the, you don't want to miss these opportunities. And again, we don't have to take for granted playing and watching play Leo Messi. So it's going to be a special game as always.
Yeah. I mean, Xavi had an explosive interview recently. I don't know if you saw that, where he said Laporta didn't want Messi coming back after winning the World Cup, which is kind of crazy. I mean, we benefited from it, right? Because he came to MLS ultimately. Brian, talk to me about this game in terms of. I'm curious to see your take on Luca De La Torre, Brant Bronico, right? Like we saw Brent Bronico come back in. Is it a stance where we'll see him again? Do you feel like Luca De La Torre will start? Where are you at?
I think you stick with what worked this last week, and I think you.
No,
keep
to me, this is a
Brant
perfect
Bronico.
game for Bronico.
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
I would like to just see Brant tail Messi like the whole game.
And outrun Rodrigo de Paul. He's a high, work rate player in the midfield too. So
yeah, so you kind of have to.
You need Bronico there.
You have to kind of match that as well. But I think you got to stick with Bronico for at least 60 or 70 minutes. See where the game kind of pans out. And I thought this could end up being what we see. We talked about this in preseason just because of I feel like Luka and Westwood kind of cancel each other out in terms of what they maybe bring to the table a little bit, and Bronico provides a little bit more of a complementary just trait and work rate and stuff like that, and he will just eat the minutes necessary. And I really liked how fresh Luca De La Torre looked when he came in. And so if you do need a goal and you need just a fresh look and fresh ideas for those last 25 minutes, I think Luca De La Torre would bring those in that moment, and that would be especially if they're down a goal, necessary, right? At that point, I'd rather be able to have the option to bring on Luka rather than Brant Bronico in that scenario. So I think there's a couple of reasons why I also just prefer Brant out of the gate. High work rate, being able to cover for Toffolo, because again, otherwise that right wing, you will get cooked. They have multiple guys who can play out there. Whether it's, and Tadio isn't even starting right now. This is how deep they are. Tadio Allende, who scored 20-something goals last year and broke a record for MLS Cup, 9 goals in the MLS Cup, broke a record, isn't even starting right now. They're just kind of bringing him in for kicks. And so I think you have to be really on your P's and Q's, especially with your structure. How good they are in transition whenever Messi gets on the ball. If you play how you did in the first 2 weeks, when you give up a turnover in your own box, it's game over. I mean, how quick Messi goes from being like just kind of just slowly moving around to getting the ball and turning it up to 100 really fast and having 2 ideas and bing, 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 it's over. And so I think that's where Charlotte really struggled in week 1, week 2. They couldn't recover fast enough. Yeah. And
we didn't see it get tested that much this match.
No, you had those 2 turnovers, and I feel like they did recover faster because there was one ball where Zaha he just tried to pull a switch, and it went right to Jaden Nelson, and he had a chance and he put it over the bar. And Charlotte did recover faster in that scenario, but you do that against Messi, and it's a completely different scenario. The amount of different ways he will punish you quickly is
even we saw that against Gabriel Peke and Joao Klaus and Paint Seal. That's the type of dynamic players close to what Miami also brings to the table. So if you lose the ball in transition, they're gonna say, I'm sorry, I'm gonna miss a chance. They're not missing. So
Toño, I feel like I can't get a read for who's going to be our starting right winger just yet. So who would you go for this game? Would you go Abada or you go Vargas, right?
Kind of looks like a pitching count. One game Abada, one game Kerwin. But Kerwin did great when he came off the bench. He provided a good spark. Kerwin does good against Inter Miami. He has scored.
That's a great point.
But I think they're going to go with Liel again. I think Kerwin comes better off the bench than Abada. Abada off the bench sometimes is kind of, non-influential in the game. He might be... I think I saw something from Abada last game.
Last week, for sure.
Not going to lie. So I think they're going to go with him. But if you want a winger that helps Nathan on those defensive, good, high work rates, maybe you go with Kerwin because he has more, defensive discipline than Liel. So it can be, a flip coin, 1-on-1, or depends what Dean really wants. If he wants a winger that can help Nate defend, but I think ultimately they're gonna go with Abada again.
Yeah, and it helps that he's gotten assists. I think from a confidence standpoint, that's always good when you can have a goal contribution.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen this, guys, but I think Kerwin physically looks better this season. Yeah. I mean, he's still young. He's been young, and your body's still developing, but he looks powerful, strong. Like when he dribbled last Saturday against Austin, I saw a Kerwin that has a different burst, and man, I like what I saw from him coming off the bench.
This might be those Boca links, huh,
I-
Brian?
Yeah. maybe. I do think that right side is where Charlotte can find some just good moments. I think on that side you've got Savetti, really talented player, but a little bit on the younger side, right? 19, 20, and then Noah Allen has been kind of in the left back role. And I feel like that side of the field, attacking on that side, is going to be an potentially advantageous moment for Charlotte if they can figure out how to get forward. So I think having a more aggressive option in Abada out of the gate is worth it on that
because
side.
Miami struggles on defense.
Yeah.
So they're not perfect at the back. So Sergio Reguilon hasn't played yet.
No, he's still. I think he's still out until after these next few weeks.
Still recovering. So that's not gonna be Mascherano's back for the remainder of the season. So he's still finding what combination of defenders work for him right now. So Charlotte can exploit that. Again, having a player like Saha in these types of games against world-class players, he's a world-class player. He's been in tough situations. He's played Premier League, European Champions tournament. So his personality, I think, matches this type of games. And I think he's been very sharp. Again, winning 1v1, 1v2. So that's a Saha that we needed. That's a Pep Biel that we need, for this upcoming game.
Brian, you've mentioned this. Jorge Mas has also mentioned this. And between you two guys, you're billionaires.
High praise.
CONCACAF Champions Cup is something that they are pursuing right heavily.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that they have a match this Wednesday against none other than Nashville, who is a great team, and they know them pretty well now, right?
Yeah.
And so how much of an advantage or a positive do you see that they have to play such a high-level match a couple of days before they come and play at the bank?
That was a huge advantage. I mean, I think this is why historically you see CCC teams struggle. You saw Seattle Sounders win the tournament and not qualify for the playoffs in the same season, right? Do one of the most monumental accomplishments in all of MLS history and also not qualify for the playoffs. So that definitely, and that's why also Vancouver's season, I think last year was so special to do what they did, go as deep as they did, and still somehow find a way to be near the top of the standings. And so, it definitely will play a role. I think Miami is not going to be thinking as heavily about the Charlotte game because all eyes are on Nashville again for like the 8th time in like the last 6 months or whatever it is. It's an unbelievable amount of times they've matched up against each other recently. But I think Nashville
in high state games too.
In high state games, and I think also Nashville has circled this game on their end as well. Like, hey, this is our most important game. We want to make up for what happened down the stretch during that MLS Cup run. And so I'd imagine Nashville is going to absolutely bring it.
And Inter Miami is going to go heavy
100%.
starters
Absolutely.
against Nashville. Because if you tie a match day 4 in MLS compared to an elimination situation in CONCACAF Champions Cup to Nashville, you'd rather prioritize that game.
Yeah, and
so
I would
could
expect.
affect
there's a chance there's some rotation too.
Yeah,
right?
maybe.
Yeah. On the other side of that, this is probably one of the people have claimed this is one of the best squads in MLS. This could be potentially like one of the best in a long time in terms of what Inter Miami has built. Does that play any consideration in saying, well, they've prepared for this, so there's really no true advantage that we're getting? Toño?
Well, it depends how much Mascherano plans the week and who starts, but I can feel that Beckham and Jorge Mas have a priority of winning international tournaments just to expose the Inter Miami brand as much as they can until Messi is out of contract. So they're maximizing this winning window everywhere.
I mean, it feels like they go to every other month,
Yeah, they play in Central America.
They
play
Honduras, Del Valle, just like
Puerto
a
Rico,
ago.
El Salvador.
Yeah.
I mean, where haven't they gone?
We're on tour.
The Messi World Tour, and so you're right.
They're exposing the brand.
Exactly, and so I mean, that was going to be my point, from a strategic standpoint, and if I'm looking at it as a business guy,
Absolutely, go to international.
Yeah, they're like, this is if we have to pick one trophy to try to get this year and it's the CONCACAF Champions Cup.
Yeah.
Because of what it provides for them.
Yeah, and again, they have a good squad enough to qualify to the playoffs. Maybe they don't win the Supporter Shield, but they finish second or third.
Yeah.
They're going to still be one of the favorites in during the playoffs. So
And they've already
It's-
taken that
it's still
that
March,
trophy
so-
on their belt already
They've
as
broken
well.
the record.
It's March,
Yeah,
so, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, awesome. With that said, let's get into some score predictions for this match, and I'll start off with you, Toño.
I would like to Charlotte win, but I see a tie, a 2-2 tie.
Oof, okay.
I would like to see goals. I like to see Charlotte competing against one of the, best oppositions in the Eastern Conference. I think what we saw against Austin, it gives you, a lot of promise that the team is, recovering their memory of how they can play. And playing at bank is hard for, opponents' team to come here and get some points. So I would hope Charlotte to win, but I'll say I can see a draw. I can see a 2-2 tie maybe.
Any particular goal scorers you're hyped for Charlotte FC?
I want to see maybe Toklo score again, and
Kalina header.
well, Kalina saved a penalty kick the other time that Messi
Yeah.
tried to Panenka it,
Yeah.
not in the bank. So I don't know. So Pep is also in the starting 11 of match day 3 for MLS. So maybe
Maybe the
back to back.
Yeah,
Hope
that'd
so.
be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian?
I think 2-0. I think Charlotte keeps the clean
Clean
sheet.
sheet.
I think
Let's
they
go.
keep the
Against
clean
the
sheet,
GOAT. All right.
Back to back. I think CCC does impact
Yeah.
Miami.
See
in this
how
one.
they rotate. Yeah.
I think it does for sure. I mean, maybe we see a little bit of rotation, or just less mental energy and just focus
Right.
on this game.
Yeah.
I think Messi obviously will be locked in, but I think
You
he's
can
going
come
to get
deflated
frustrated.
to these
Yeah.
games if you had
Yeah.
a very
Yeah.
intense
Do you think he'll
midweek game.
offer to sign autographs for the bench and Dean Smith like he did against Orlando?
I mean, if my prediction is not correct and he starts scoring goals, I think I could totally. That was one of the things I didn't bring up earlier, but I hope to see some Zaha, DePaul, Messi antics, because I will say
That's
will
that's primetime television right
100%.
there.
I will say Messi, the way he's kind of evolved into MLS has been.
Chippy.
It's been very entertaining. I think he's really taken on that kind of villain role
That's
and
fair.
really embraced it. And the way he's kind of just
Last game he was showing the shirt.
100%.
Yeah.
And
DC's
and
bench
props to him. I think that's awesome. I think it's beneficial. I mean, obviously to his own brand, but I think it's also beneficial to MLS as a whole when it just finds these different ways
Yeah.
to kind of get eyes on these different games. And again, like the photo of all the Orlando fans flicking him off after he scores, and then he tells the Orlando bench that he wants to sign their
Orlando bench,
autographs,
yeah.
and just
This-
all those kind of moments are special, and those are ones that will leave an impact on fans in and outside of MLS.
See, that's what I love about Messi. He just doesn't think about himself. He thinks about others and how to make the game better, not only for us, but future generations
Let's do a
of MLS.
GoFundMe. Messi GoFundMe. Poor guy. He's just a good Samaritan.
Listen,
Hydrating
hey,
the world. That's
no,
what he's doing.
Nobel Peace Prize. I nominate Messi. I think we'll win too, and I think it's because of two things. The determining factor is that Wednesday match. Like that'll take a lot out of Miami, and also like these guys have come to Charlotte and they've realized how difficult it is here
Yep.
to take points to win.
We beat them on the decision day.
Yep, we did.
3? 24?
Yes, 24, I believe. And then, it's a lot of the squad is still there and knows that coming to Charlotte is not an easy ground to get points. So I think you factor that in. You factor, that they'll play Wednesday. I think that gives us the edge. And I'm going to go for a 2-1. I think a Toklo goal, and I think we'll see a Zaha goal this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And so
One other advantage, and this is where the lower bowl helps. You don't have as many seats for Miami fans to come in and take those spots. You have 35,000 Charlotte FC fans. Obviously, you're still going to bring some, but last year there were a lot of Messi fans. But I feel like there were a lot- there
but
was-
you could say
there
that
was a
same
decent
thing
amount.
now that there's people that are gonna wear their Messi shirts.
I feel like
instead of their Charlotte FC
I
shirts.
feel like if you open the upper bowl versus keeping the lower bowl, I think there's going to be a majority
There's
of
gonna be
Charlotte
less.
FC fans. I think there'll be a
Gotcha.
majority of Charlotte FC fans.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, they were even pointing them out last year, which was pretty funny on the screens as
Yeah.
Miami was losing.
Yeah.
And so that was a great shout out to the stadium ops there for that. And so, we've gone through an hour really fast, Toño, thank you so much for coming on.
Always a pleasure.
where can people find you at?
Well, you can find me at the Charlotte FC Spanish radio broadcast, 106.1 FM, so you can practice your Spanish. And
what better match to watch it in Spanish than against
if
Inter
you're at
Miami?
the stadium, just tune in. They also have a website, so you can listen to our broadcast and watch the game live. So it's going to be a little bit delayed, but you can still, listen to us. And you can also find me on Twitter at Ramos019, so we can talk about MLS, soccer, World Cup, a little bit NFL is off season, but still doing some stuff with the Panthers as well. So happy to have soccer back at the bank for 4 more games in a row.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brian, where can people find you?
Find me on Exit. Bam! Mauer Media, written content, topbin90.com. You know where to find me.
Yes, sir. Jorge Gonzalez, we're TopBin90 on all our socials. Thank you, guys. This has been another episode. We are over and out. Good.